All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Letters of Light. We are going to be spending time today trying to understand the letter Dalet, the fourth letter in the Hebrew alphabet. And I felt like maybe we should do a little bit differently today. Today, we're going to see where the word Dalet appears first in the Torah. Now remember that the Vilna Gaon says that the way in which you see a word being used for the first time in the Torah, that is its definition, right? So the word Dalet in Hebrew can be spelled out in three letters: Dalet, Lamed, Taf. Okay, three letters. Dalet, Lamed, Taf is how you spell out the word Dalet. Every Hebrew word can be spelled out, and therefore, if you just change around the vowels on the bottom, the word Dalet will also spell out the word Dalet, which means door. And that's right. So the first time you see the word door in the Torah is in Bereshit. V'yetzeh Elohem lot hapetcha v'hadelet sagar acharav. The first time you see the word Dalet being used in the Torah is with Lot. Those of you who don't remember, Lot was Abraham's nephew. And this particular incident is talking about when Lot was visited by the three angels. And these three angels were coming to save him and his family. Okay, and at this point, the locals in Sodom and Gomorrah came and accosted him and these angels, and now Lot was coming out to address them. Okay, so Lot went out to the entrance and shut the door behind him. Now, why do I need to know that? Like, why are any of these details important? Remember, whenever the Torah gives us something in the text, the obvious question is, well, why? Why is it there? Why do I need to know about the petach? Why do I need about the Dalet Sagar? Who cares? How many times does Abraham come in and out of his house? We never hear him opening and closing the door.
No, but his door was not closed. Right?
I understand that, but still.
But that doesn't mean
It's true he had an open door policy. It doesn't mean that the door wasn't closed, it just wasn't locked. You know, like you had to have a door. You can't have a house without a door. As a matter of fact, the Gemara says that in the temple, there's something called the Kisei HaKavod, the chair of honor, and the chair of honor was a toilet. It was a bathroom in Jerusalem that had a lock on it. It was called the chair of honor because there was a lock on it, and you couldn't just walk right in because that was not the norm back in the ancient world. Back in the ancient world, you went to go do your thing, you did it together, and you just walked in and out, or whatever it is. So what made this particular space honorable is that it had a lock. So there is something to say about having a lock and a closed door. But I imagine that Abraham did have doors, but it just wasn't locked. Anyway, so you see the first time you see the word Dalet is with Lot. Okay, and he comes and he confronts them. Vayomru gash ha'ala vayomru echad balagur v'yishpod shafat nera la'mehem v'yirtzu b'ish balot ma'od v'yigashu lishbor ha'delet. They're coming to break the door down. You see the door being used over there again, right? I'll do it in English. Okay, they said, stand back, the fellow. They said, come here as an alien, and already he acts as the ruler. No, we will deal with you. We will do worse with you than with them. And they pressed hard against that household, against Lot. They moved to break the door. Now remember that the reason why Sodom and Gomorrah was about to be destroyed was because of one act. Okay, it's amazing how actions leave a powerful residue or mark that shapes that environment. So, for example, Lot, the law in Sodom and Gomorrah was that if you were unable to feed yourself, if you were unable to have a job, there was no mercy, no kindness. The law was, it was against the law to feed the poor. Why? Survival of the fittest. Kill or be killed. And therefore, if you were unable to protect yourself and for yourself, you did not deserve to be alive. That was the law there. Lot goes down there. He's trying to do outreach. He's trying to do the chesed of Abraham in this place that is so morally bankrupt. So they see that Lot has a bunch of guests. The law in Sodom, no guests. You can host your neighbor who could support himself, but you can't take in strangers into your home. You can't feed those people that are in need. So they say, oh, Lot, you're coming down here trying to break our laws. You're trying to go ahead and change things around here. We're going to stop it. Now, the precursor to this is that Lot had a daughter who we don't read about in Psukim. And she witnesses a poor man who lost everything in Sodom. And so she starts bringing him food late at night and hiding this act of kindness. And after months of them seeing this poor person still surviving, they know someone's breaking the law because he should be dead. Remember, in the ancient world, people didn't die in hospitals, in a neatly packaged, sanitized area at the end of a city. They died in the streets. So they were waiting for this guy to die. No one's feeding you, you're gonna die. But he survives. So they end up finding the culprit. They find Lot's daughter. And their punishment was death. How did they kill her? In the most cruel possible way. They stripped her of her clothing. They had her tied up, and they took honey, and they covered her body in honey, and they took a bunch of beehives, and they broke them open, and she was stung to death by bees. And the Midrash says that God heard her cries. As a result of her cries, Sodom was marked for destruction. Right? That was the kind of cruelty. Now, if society is left to its own devices, it'll create the most cruel conditions for humanity. So there's more, when morality is left alone, and there is no absolute morality, there's no objective morality, morality is defined by humanity. And humanity will define what is moral. In their world, that was normal and moral. The Dalet represents poverty, as you'll see. Okay? The Gimel last week is Gomel Dalim. It's running after the Dalet. And the reason why we're learning a little bit over here about the entrances and the doors is because of the letter Dalet. You'll see how it all fits in together. Hikshu Adanav. Okay, we did that. Okay, and his master shall take before him, and he shall be brought to the door of the doorpost. And his master shall pierce his ear with an awl, and he shall remain his master's slave forever. There's another idea. You see the Dalet, where you bring a servant who is supposed to go free, and he does not want to go free because of Shemitah. He can go free. What do you do with him? You take him to the door, and you bang a nail in the door through his ear by closing the door on his ear. Right? That's the way of showing that he was unwilling to remove himself as a slave and wants to remain a slave. Okay, and then it says over here what the gematria, another pasuk in Dvarim says it as well. You shall take an owl and put it through a nail and put it through his ear in the door, and shall become your slave in perpetuity. Do the same with your female slave. The gematria of Dalet is 434. The gematria of Dalet is the same exact gematria, 434. It is the same gematria of the word bebeitecha, which means in your house. What's the connection between the door and your house? And what's the correlation between door, house, and a slave getting pierced? And why are the Psukim telling us about Lot, meeting the people of Sodom by the doorpost, closing the door, breaking down the door? Let's see if we can answer it. Pasuk tells us more, number 6, that the word beitecha, remember, is a correlation between the word Dalet. Remember, when we see the word beitecha, it is the same numerical value as the word Dalet. In Hebrew, when you find two words that share a numerical value, there's something to be learned from the two. And therefore, it could even be interchangeable, because numerically they're the same. Okay? So you could have words that have the same numerical value, that have different meaning, but have a correlation between these two concepts and ideas. Okay. The Rim also says, "L'mata el tam et b'neichen l'davar bam beitecha b'shutecha b'beitecha l'tcha b'derech l'kumecha." Right. This is the famous pasuk in the Shema we hear. Teach your children, reciting them when you stay at home, when you're away, when you lie down, when you get up. The mitzvah of constantly learning Torah. U'v'lechtecha b'derech. Okay. It's actually in this week's parsha is Parshat Bahar Bechukotai, and the word in Parshat Bechukotai, the pasuk says Bechukotai telechu. Right, in my chukim you shall go. And Rashi over there points out that the word bechukotai telechu, the word telechu, means amelut b'Torah, right, which means to toil in your Torah. The walking in the Torah is correlated to the laws. Walk in my ways. So there's lots of corollary ideas that are pulled out from the verses themselves. we just read things and we don't think about it, meaning we think about the meaning of what the word is trying to impart, but we don't think about the words themselves. And in Judaism, not only are we looking at the sentence structure, we're looking at the words and the letters within the words, and we're looking at the numerical value of the words. This is how the Bible codes work. There's a lot of new research being done with Bible codes today because you have AI that's able to find things that humans are not able to find. And they're just getting started and scratching the surface of how deep these things go. Anyway, so let's keep going. So, okay, fine. Now, through the door, we welcome guests into our home. What enters our home becomes elevated, we sanctify it, we make it sacred. The Hebrew word to sanctify or to hallow is kiddashtem, which has a gematria of 434, the same as Dalet. Now, okay, meaning a door. The numerical value, the numerical equivalence teaches you the doorway is not just a physical threshold, but a spiritual portal, a place through which sanctity is drawn into our lives. Now think about it. The Dalet, the door, is what you let in. It's not just a doorway into your home, right? We say the word, if you change shinoi makom, shinoi mazal, change your space, you change your mazal. The space is not your beitecha, it's not just your home, it is the makom. What place do you occupy the most? Your headspace, right? And therefore, the way you change your mazal, the way you change your fortune, is by changing the way you see reality. We've spoken a lot about this in the positive, manifesting positivity in the world. We say that da mala mala mincha, know that everything that comes from above comes from you. Your thoughts shape your reality. What we see is the eyes just take in light. It doesn't see anything. The eyes don't see anything. Your brain takes the light that it sees in the world around you, and it shapes its reality. It's actually filling in, like AI does, it fills in the gaps. This is why, if you ever have someone who's in a dark cave, where there's no light, he's there long enough, you know what ends up happening? You start hallucinating, seeing things. Because the brain so desperately wants to see reality. But it's not the eyes seeing, the mind is seeing. It takes everything in. So the same is true with the concept of Dalet. The Dalet is not just, or the Dalet is not just a portal, a doorway. It's what you allow in and out of your life. And as Jews, we're supposed to take things into our home. It says, "V'shechanti b'tocham." God wants to dwell within them, not within the temple. Within them is whom? Within us. Your mind is a portal. It's a house. It's a bebeitecha. Within. A bait is already a place that's in. Bebeitecha is within that within. The within that within is within your home. Where is that home? The home is your mind. The mind is the gateway between the body and the soul. The concept of shmirat enayim, of guarding what you watch, is real. I don't have to explain to you lashon hara, guarding the ears, or shmirat halashon, guarding what you speak. They say the door, the door of the face is the mouth, right? You got to be careful what you allow out. What comes in is your ears, right? There's two doors. You could take this inner lobe and close your ear, and then take this one and fold it over. You have two doors to close your ears, right? And you have two doors for your mouth, the teeth and the lips. So you got to be careful what you let in and what you let out. That's the Dalet. This is why we have locks on our doors. Okay? What you allow in has the power of being sanctified. And what you let out also has the power of being sanctified. This is what you should do to them by consecrating them to serve me as priests. The young bull shall be the young bull of the herd, and the two rams without blemishes. The concept of having something, lekadesh, kedashtem, make it holy. What is kadosh? Shabbat is kadosh. How do you celebrate Shabbat? You celebrate it in the home. How do you get into the home? Through the Dalet. It's all connected. Okay? In bebeitecha, in your home. Okay, v'achlu otam, kufar bahem lamala et yadam lekadesh otam, zalo echal ki kadosh. These are the things that will be eaten only for those who expiation was made for them when they were ordained and consecrated. They may not be eaten by a layperson, for they are holy. There are certain kinds of food that could only be eaten by the Kohen. That's elevated. The biblical word teled, right, which means to give birth, right, is the same letters as and the same gematria as Dalet. Okay, is the third person feminine future for the word yulad, meaning she shall give birth. It is also the gematria 434, the same as the word dalet, door. This connection teaches us that we give birth to physically, spiritually, or creatively is like a guest we welcome into our home. What we allow in spiritually, physically, gives birth to all sorts of things. That's the Dalet, that's the doorway. The doorway to our soul is our body, our mind. What we allow, what we put in there, what rests in there, it impacts us. It has an effect on us. In the same way that Sodom had to be eradicated because of a deed, because of an action, okay? It leaves its mark. You know, many years ago, I've shared this before, I think once, it was Rebbe Heller, who's a famous educator at Neve Seminary in Israel, in Yerushalayim, in Har Nof. We once asked her, my wife and I, a question about having guests. We have all kinds of guests in our homes with tattoos and piercings and fascinating kinds of people. And our children were, getting older, and we asked, is it a problem to have these kinds of people in our home? So she said the following thing to us. She said, if you want to make your bedroom into a sanctuary for pigeons, don't complain if you smell like bird poop. And that was her way of saying, you can have these people there, but it'll have an impact on you. What you bring into your home. Now, I really believe when you're doing it l'shem shamayim, when you're doing anything with the kiddashtem, this concept of elevating it, even something as challenging as a difficult person in your home can be a way of elevating your family. But it has to be sincere. But what I'm saying is, so whoever you let in, whatever you let in, the question is, why are you letting it in? I can watch a movie if the purpose of watching that movie, and you have to be very careful here because you're going to be rationalizing it, is to elevate it. I want to teach a lesson from the movie. I want to go ahead and use this music that may be inappropriate, understand it so I can understand the culture of my time. But if I'm just allowing everything in through the filter, and there is no filter, you have an open door policy, and just be mindful it will leave an effect on your body. It leaves an effect on your soul. I'm not saying you should enjoy the world. Enjoy everything the world has to offer. It's there for you. But how we take it in matters. Okay? Because the word Dalet comes from the word Yulad. What you allow in gives birth to spirituality, creativity, and so on and so forth. There's more sheets right over there. All right. Through the door, we invite in not only others, but also outcomes of our inner efforts, our ideas, our children, our sacred work. Okay, Genesis 17:1 was cut off. That is the pasuk where the angels are coming to tell Abraham about the fact that God tells him he's going to have children. Okay, V'yipol Abraham al panav v'yitzachek. He falls on his face and he starts to laugh. V'yamud halaven ma mea shana yulad im Sarah habat tish'im shana teled. Abraham threw himself on the floor and on his face and he laughed and he said to himself, can a child be born to a man of 100 years old? Can Sarah bear a child at 90? And the answer is, yeah, of course you can. But my covenant will maintain with Isaac from Sarah shall bear to you at this season next year. So now, the question is, why did Abraham have to wait till he was 100 years old to have a child? It's just a weird thing. God couldn't give him a child earlier. So I saw the Maharal who says that the reason why Abraham had to be 100 years old is because that when you return to 100 years old, you're completely disconnected from the world that you grew up in. You're in a different generation. You're no longer connected to your past. And since Abraham's father, Terach, was a challenging man, now think about it, where did Abram grew up in his father's house, right? In order for him to be disconnected from his house, he had to wait 100 years to elevate himself and change every fiber of his being changes at 100 years old. Now, I'm going to say this here. We could watch this in about 5 or 6 years from now. I made a bracha earlier. If we survive the next 5 to 10 years, everyone in this room will probably live till for sure in their early 100s.
What do you say 5 to 10 years? What are you telling me?
I'm telling you that you're going to live a long life, because I believe if we don't destroy ourselves in the next 5 to 10 years,
So you're saying that's a real possibility?
Oh, I'm saying it is a very real possibility. Yeah, I'm saying it's a very real possibility, 100%. The world is, they just did this past week, China just used CRISPR, which is a gene editing technology that was discovered by two women, Rachel Dowda, and I forgot the other person's name. They figured out how to edit genes.
How do what?
Edit genes. Not the ones that you wear, but the genes in your body, their DNA. Now, we know that that the body itself, every cell has a set of instructions inside of it. And that those DNA are literally letters, combination of letters, and they instruct the cells of what to do. How does a cell know to become hair versus an eye? How does the cells know how to turn into a heart versus lungs? Because at the core, everything that makes up your body or bones. I had a student many years ago. I used to run these things called metro trips, where we had Jewish kids from around the world. We would give them a week tour of, get a metro card. We had 1 week, we would do Jewish New York. I would take them to Hatzalah, I'd take them to the Diamond District, take them to all different kinds of interesting people in and around the New York area, and kind of inspire them to be more Jewish, right? And these were kids from all over the world. And I had one kid who I met from Minnesota, who was from the former Soviet Union. He was born in Russia, and actually in Kiev. And I was told on the trip that he had a very extreme stage of cancer. And he had fallen on the trip, and I had to go into the hospital, right? So I took him to the hospital, and the doctor comes out, and he's like, are you caring for this person? I said, yeah. I'm like, he doesn't have much time. I'm like, what are you talking about? I had no idea how advanced. He's like, he'll be lucky if he survives a couple more months. I forgot the name of his cancer, but he had a unique cancer where his body was producing bones in places that you should not have bones. A bone growing in your lung, a bone growing in your knee, a bone growing in your back. That was the cells, for whatever reason, were the cancer that he had was just bones growing. And eventually, 6 months later, he lived for another 6 months and died. And I remember thinking it's just, we take for granted that our bodies follow a set of protocol, and it works over and over again. But today, this past week, we've reached a point where we could actually go back and edit away gene defects. So someone who I forgot the disease this person had, it was an autoimmune disease, they edited it away, they fixed it. Right? So if we could go ahead and this is not a class on science, this is a class on letters, but it's important because the DNA are a set of letters. There's actually this is a whole other thing we'll do another time later. But letters, each letter is important. If one letter is missing, the whole structure falls apart, yeah.
Is your purpose for your comment meaning that the world, because of this fighting and the war?
Yes.
Or are you saying that for some other reason?
I'm saying that because we're living in extraordinary times, right? And we're living in a time where there's a fine balance, a fine tuning to the world that we live in, and we take it for granted.
Right.
I can go ahead and pick up my phone and have a coffee delivered to my house, right? That's insane. I don't have to do anything. I just literally go like this. My phone's over here. I can't show you, right? But I could literally, if I need food, I could lift up my phone. I go to Uber Eats or whatever it is, DoorDash, click a button. I want this. I get kosher food delivered to me anywhere within 25, 30 minutes. That's that. It's unreal. I need an item. I don't have to go to the store. I need a toothbrush. I need soap. I need something from Amazon. I need a book. It comes to my house. Do you understand what that is? Think about when we grew up. With that, if I needed anything, I have to go to the store. I have to find parking, wait on lines, this and that. Now I literally just go to my phone and I have endless stuff I could have delivered to my house all the time. You are living in a golden age and we take it for granted. I'm doing a series. If you're not, you can join. I have a class in the morning that I do called Beyond Breakfast, post Rabbi Farhi's Breakfast in the Class. I'm doing right now, we're doing gratitude. We're doing Hakarat Tov. It's right after Rabbi Farhi's morning class. It's every day. He finishes around 9. It's not on Zoom, but I record it and I post it. There's a WhatsApp group I could add you to afterwards. Yeah, it's on YouTube. It's all on YouTube. Anyway, so we're doing gratitude right now. And one of the things that we're doing in that class is you think that gratitude is about just being grateful to God for the things that you have. But gratitude begins with an understanding and appreciation of the self. You can't get to God if you don't appreciate what's happening here. This is what What David HaMelech says, Mi bisri echzeh Elokim, from my flesh I see God. Because when you have the gratitude of what's happening here, then you could go to the gratitude of the people around you, and with that you could go to the gratitude of God. But all too often people skip those steps. It's all about having great, oh Hashem, thank you Hashem, right? Which is important. But it can't begin with first appreciating what's happening here. Okay, so the letters, our bodies are an expression, an extension of this idea. Okay, each letter has unique form, has unique message that it is trying to express. And all I'm doing is I'm just trying to shuffle this all together and try to piece together something that is meaningful for us. So we can walk away and not just see the letter Dalet anymore, but we see the Dalet, we see a system. We see the numbers 434. We see the word Yulad, that the door gives birth to Bebeitecha, what's happening in your house. All the same gematria. Not an accident. This is how the Mikubalim, this is how the Jewish Kabbalists, when they're reading the words, they're taking in all the different layers of the intention, the letters, the numbers, the values, the combinations are all there. It's happening at once for them. That's meditation. There's a book, a Sidur by the Arizal they have now, that each letter has a color to it. And so certain names of God have different colors, and basically the book is designed and it breaks down God's name, the Yud, Dash, it breaks down all of God's name in color coordinated so that you have different levels of meditation that comes along with reading the words themselves. Right? So what we're doing is first grade level stuff. It's a Sidur HaArizal. You can find it in the stores. All right, so fine. So we did that. The first child that she bears shall be counted to the dead brother, that his name may not be blotted out in Israel. Okay? So the word Dalet is there. Okay? But Dalet Yukam al Hashem. We see the word Dalet before that also. Bebriti Yakum, right? I'm on number 15. Okay, on page 3. So source number 16 says, when the word Dalet is spelled out in full, Dalet, you see the word Lamed Tav. Okay, total gematria is 914. This is also the gematria of the biblical word Mishpachtam, right? Mishpachtam, meaning and from their families. From this we learn that the Dalet, the physical existence, is a spiritual doorway through which each individual enters the world to give birth, both literally and metaphorically. It is through this door that we extend our spiritual essence into the world, contributing to the ongoing unfolding of the divine family to which we all belong. The letter Dalet is thus the gateway to the letter to the 4-letter divine name, Yud He Vav He. Through it, the transcendent becomes immanent, meaning it has kiyum. Something that is beyond our comprehension, like these lofty ideas, becomes immanent. It becomes more tangible. And the eternal projects into time and conditioned physical existence. So the Dalet is a doorway that brings things down into the material world. And it is we who are given the power to open that door, to allow the flow of holiness into the fabric of our daily lives. What we choose to enter into the mind is what becomes our reality. You understand that? The Dalet is teaching us this concept, the door that swings in these two different ways. The mechanism of the door is a response to the organic movement of the letter Gimel. The Gimel represents emotion and giving, drawing out as water is drawn from the well. The Dalet, as a door, responds by opening to receive. So the Gimel is running to give to the Dalet. The Dalet is opening to receive. The Dalet is like the hand that's receiving. Okay? In this way, the Dalet takes in what the Gimel draws forth, completing the sacred exchange of giving and receiving, flow and containment. Okay, the Gemara in Shabbat says, and why is the roof of the Dalet extended toward the Gimel? You see there's a little bit of that, the Dalet has a little bit of that space that comes out on the right side that's coming out to the Dalet, right? You see the Dalet is like this, right? So why is this part of the Dalet, which is facing on the right to the Gimel, why is it there? Why can't it just be 2 lines? Why is that little space like that coming over on the Dalet? So the Gemara says, because the Talmud teaches you that a poor person must make himself available to the giver. Right? He has to not be waiting around. He's got to make himself available. He's got to go out and do his hishtadlut. Look what the Bahir says. The Bahir is one of the oldest Kabbalistic texts. Okay, we're on page 4. The Dalet is composed of the vowel petach, which can be interpreted as meaning the word opening, meaning the Dalet, right, on the bottom has a patach, right? The vowel patach, which literally means open, right? A petach for its roof. And the vowel segol, dalet, right, is a segol on the bottom, which can be interpreted as a mean property, possession, or remedy, like segula, or adaptation or adjustment, segol, for its side. And that is the reason that the side of the Dalet is thicker in the middle and not just a straight line. So you have these ideas where you're looking at the shape itself is telling you about the relation between these two letters, the receiver and the giver. Ari Kaplan will be here. This is his commentary. He says the Dalet consists of two lines, one from right to left on top and the other straight down on the right side. The first line connects chokhmah, wisdom, to bina, understanding, while the second line connects chokhmah, wisdom, to chesed and love, right? The greatest chesed is what? Is love. Why is that? What does the word love mean? How do you say the word love in Hebrew? Ahava. What is the root word of the word ahava? Hav, which means to give. Giving is the ultimate expression of chesed, which ultimately leads to love. Who loves you more than anyone else in the world? Your mother, right? Because she has given. Of course, Hashem. Hashem's the answer to every question. It's not fair. Hashem said so. No, it's your mother, right? Your mom more than your dad, even because she is giving you more than anyone else. Giving is the builds and creates love. The vowel associated with chokhmah, wisdom, is the patach, while segol is associated with chesed, love. The word dalet, or dalet, right, meaning door, while the word patach, meaning opening, right? Since chokhmah, wisdom, represents our highest perception of divine, it is God's opening to reveal himself. God's opening to reveal himself. Segol is related to the word segula, a remedy that works for no apparent reason. Segol thus parallels the sphira of chesed, which is love, which gives freely even without reason. So your word over here, dalet, okay, is not just a word that is a letter that is used to open and close doors. It's talking about the letter that opens and closes our spiritual connection to God. And that connection manifests our reality. So what is he saying? He's saying over here that are you extending yourself to the ultimate giver? Meaning if God is the ultimate G-O-D, right? The God, right? The Gimel, right? If he's the giver, by the way, all Gimel, right? The J sound is giving, like the Gimel, okay? Are you open to receiving from God? Are you open to elevating the world around you? Are you open to allowing the spirituality to flow through you so you can make this material world into something more? Are you allowing God to rest within you? Are you creating a vessel, a home? Are you part of the family, that allows this elevation to happen? That's what the Dalet represents. So Rabbi Jacob ben HaKohen, he says as follows: from this we begin to understand the spiritual distinction between the entranceway and a patach, an opening, and a door. The entranceway is a space of potential passage. The door, however, is the mechanism that moves, it opens or closes, allowing what is on one side to pass through the other. It is a threshold of transition, regulating access between the two realms. Lot's house, in the beginning, was a place, the Beitecha, inside, where he was trying to elevate Kedusha. Him leaving his house in the Torah is symbolically him leaving the holiness of his home and going into this world of darkness in the world of Sodom. But even Lot, who with everything that he was trying to do, all that chesed, it was still seeping into his house. He was still smelling like bird poop, no matter what you do, right? You can't escape it. So to the point where it was so bad, where he had to be extricated from that place and watch that whole entire area be destroyed. The full meaning of Dalet is the door through which the humble enter into the realization of God's dwelling place below. In this light, the Dalet becomes not just a symbol of structure or limitation, but a gateway to the divine opened by humility and readiness to receive. There is no way of connecting to God without being humble. This is what we say. We say, Reshit Chokhmah, Yirat Hashem. The beginning of all wisdom is the fear of God. Why is that? If I don't have the humility or the fear to lower my ego, okay, I'll never find God. If I don't create a space like the Dalet does for allow the Gimel to give, you'll never let God into your life. I see this so often with people who are just trying to find spirituality, they get so lost in the rational approach of finding God, they don't create a space open in their heart. There are two separate things happening here. Of course, in Judaism, the whole of the Torah is all about elevating your emotions. It's about recognizing those emotions, but not allowing the emotions to define you. We're supposed to be using a higher power, the mind, to make our choices. If all you are is an expression of the emotions, you're no different than an animal. Animals make choices based on their emotions. But to be a human being means I could elevate and become more than my emotions. I can choose to do anything I want to do. If I decided tomorrow that I want to have the physique of a silverback gorilla, okay, I can start going to the gym, start taking my creatine and my protein powder, and I could have a huge Herculean physique. I didn't choose that, obviously. Right? But the point that I'm making is that you choose what you become. That's what it means to be a human being. To be an Adam means that you can become something more. God wants you all to become the best versions of yourselves. Well, how do you do that? Well, what do you let in and out of your lives? What are you letting in? What do you like to penetrate the inner parts of your being? The Maharal says the letter Dalet, with its numerical value of 4, represents the physical world. Okay, which extends in 4 directions: north, south, east, and west. The shape of the Dalet resembles a door, with its lintel stretching horizontally, right and left. The doorpost descending vertically, up and down, symbolizing entry into space and dimension. Even the metaphysical realm is structured in 4s, as it flows into and interacts into the physical world. When the river that flowed from Eden reached the earth, it branched into 4 streams, a pattern reflecting how divine energy divides as it descends into creation. Kabbalistic literature describes God's creation of the universe as unfolding through the 4 worlds, representing descending levels, holiness and spiritual revelation. From the level closest to God, beyond human comprehension, to the tangible world of action. Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, and Nesiyah. These 4 stages is how God's spirituality goes through this filter and trickles down to the world that you and I have. A world where we and I can have choice. That world is called Asiyah, a world of action. Emanation, creation, formation, action. The world of Asiyah means action. What's the action? What's this week's parsha called? Bahar bechukotai. Bechukotai telechu. We're here to move. It's interesting that learning Torah is emblemized symbolically through the art or the action of walking. Do you think when you walk? No, there's no thinking. But it's a process that continues. The process of walking is for you to move from point A to point B, to move from your current station to your destination. That's what Torah is supposed to achieve for us. And we're supposed to move ourselves to a place where it's constantly happening. We're constantly walking through life, building and growing and developing the world of action. Asiyah. It's not just going to the gym. It's not building a house, not painting a painting. It's about building and developing of the self. This is what the Torah wants from us. Okay, we're on top of page 5. He continues, he says, to make the exodus from Egypt comprehensible to the human mind, the Torah represents it as the unfolding in 4 stages, each corresponding to these levels of redemption. The stages are expressed in the 4 promises found in Shemot. Hotzati, Hitzalti, Ga'alti, V'lakachti. I shall bring out, I shall save you, I shall redeem you, I shall take you. These are the 4 Dalet Kosot. These are the 4 expressions of redemption, and this is why we drink 4 cups on Passover during our Seder. These 3 expressions of redemption represent these 4 spiritual realities of moving from a higher state to a lower state. Okay? Through this lens, the Dalet represents not only structure and direction, but also the gateway through which divine enters the world, guiding both creation and redemption. Everything happens through 4. By the way, the Imaot, think about it for a moment, right? There are 4 mothers, not an accident, right? The Imaot are Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. Okay, why are they? They're the patriarchy, right? The patriarchs are 3. The Gimel is giving to the Dalet, to the 4. It's the system of the Gimel to the Dalet. The 3 is always giving to the 4. The 4 receives, right, with its hand from the Gimel, and it becomes pregnant, and it gives birth to what? The letter He, which we'll do B'ezras Hashem next week, right? So you see there's an evolution over here happening with the letters themselves. They're growing from one another. Okay, the Malbim says, Gemilut Chesed is generally understood as offering financial assistance or practical help to the poor. However, the sages broadened the definition of a poor person reflected in the word dal, right? The word dalet, dal, to include anyone who is lacking in some essential way. This includes not only those who are financially poor, but also individuals who are physically weak, ill, or lacking in wisdom, especially in Torah knowledge. Even someone who is not impoverished in absolute terms, but is poor in comparison to others or relative to his own previously higher level of well-being is also considered dal, and thus a proper recipient of chesed. Chesed isn't just to go ahead and serve people that are financially in dire straits. What about that kid who's struggling, who doesn't understand what's going on in class? How many teachers just give up on their students and not seeing a golden opportunity to elevate that kid? So many stories in the Gemara of students who were not able to learn, and you see the rabbis teaching them 101 times, 400 times, 500, 800 times. In Judaism, what's more important? The knowledge of something or the effort to acquire the knowledge of something? It's the effort. The Gemara says, "Lefum tzara agra," according to the pain is the reward. God doesn't care if you get to the end. As a matter of fact, if you really want to think about it intellectually for a moment, right? If we believe that God gave us the Torah, and we're studying Torah all day, you came to a Torah lecture today, right? Is it possible for a mortal being, a finite being, to truly receive something from the infinite? And the answer, the infinite. Infinite. That's okay, infinite, from God. How does a mortal, receive something from God? God is everything. Can I receive everything? The answer is I cannot. And therefore, even what I learn is a gift from God. It's not me. How many times have you gone to a class and you're listening or you're studying and you get like this crazy idea that you have your own chidush, you have a new awareness of something? Where does that come from? That's a gift from God. He gives you an understanding of the world. He gives me an understanding of the world. Where does that come from? It's me trying to understand something. And the more effort I put in trying to understand, the more God hopefully blesses me with this thing called wisdom or understanding, chokhmah, bina, and da'at. But if you're not putting in your effort to understand, you're not receiving. It's all a gift. That's part of Reshit Chokhmah Yirat Hashem. The beginning of all wisdom is the fear of God. Are you allowing Him to provide for you the things that you actually need? So the Malbim says that poverty is also intellectual and spiritual poverty. And we may have an obligation. I've dedicated my whole life to this, spending time with students who are disconnected spiritually, who did not have a Jewish education, did not have a Jewish background, and trying to provide for them and trying to instill in them or try to make more relevant Jewish ideas in the 21st century, taking things from 3,000 years ago. Think about that for a minute. What we're learning right now is 3,000 years old. Does that blow your brains out? And it's so relevant to us today. These are deep ideas that our ancient ancestors, our parents, our great ancestors fought to preserve. And here we are sitting in New York City in a basement in a synagogue, right? Trying to unpack some of these ideas. That's unreal. Do you appreciate that? It should humble all of you. It definitely humbles me.
How many generations is that?
How many from now until Abraham? A lot. It's about it's 3,300 years. It's more. It's 3,600 years from us to Abraham. That's a lot of time. You understand? To be an ancient society, you have to be 2,000 years old, right? Christianity just made it. Islam is not ancient, right? It's only 1,600 years old. Right? Judaism is I'd say Buddhism, and people would argue, is the oldest religion in the world, right? And we would say that Judaism is even older because Judaism starts with Adam. Now, why is that? Because Adam receives a tradition, okay? It's a verbal tradition, not a written tradition. The written tradition, which is actually interesting, we'll unpack it a little bit for Shavuot, is a whole other class. But anyway, let's try to finish this. I have a few more minutes. I have to run. I'm getting a call already. Where do we leave off? Number 22. The Gemara on Shabbat. The Hebrew letters, the face of the Dalet is turned away from the Gimel, symbolizing that the poor person should not have to face his benefactor directly, right? if you're going to give chesed, right, you're going to give charity, who says you should do it in the face of the person you're trying to give? This teaches us that charity should be given discreetly and with great sensitivity in a way that preserves the dignity and the self-respect of the recipient. The highest level of charity is when neither the giver nor the recipient knows the identity of the other. And we learn that from the Gimel and the Dalet. Okay? Now, the Gemara continues, and this is Gemara in Shkalim. In the temple, there was a special chamber known as the Lishkat Chashaim, the chamber of the silent, where anyone rich or poor could enter. But I have a suspicion this is where Christians got the what's it called again? The confession box. I think this is where it comes. This is where it comes from. Okay, where anyone rich or poor could enter, but only one person at a time. Those who had the means would deposit funds anonymously, while those in need would quietly take what they required. Would this work in New York City? Probably not. In this way, the giver did not know to whom he gave, and the recipient did not know from whom he received. How beautiful is that? That we could live in a world where people took their responsibility of being honest so seriously. Who am I to take what I don't need? I will only take that what I need. We live in such a selfish generation. Mar Ukva, and you saw what happened with these Columbia students this week. That whole booing and them shaming the president of the university. It to me it shows it's the lowest expression of human decency. That you can't allow the president of your school to speak. You have to boo her and shame her like that. It's disgusting. You just got an education. Where's your hakarat tov? If you don't have hakarat tov, right? If you don't have gratitude, you have something called kafui tov. You have ingratitude. You're ungrateful. Kafui tov leads to atheism.
Yeah.
When you are unable to have gratitude, you live in a world of atheism. Atheism, okay, we talk about there being 50 levels of purity and impurity. We say that before Mashiach comes, we go into the 50th level. You know what that is? That is what we call atheism. Atheism is the beginning and the end of a society. Complete atheism. There's no morality anymore. You do what I want. The Gemara gives a very clear structure. What ends up happening is the first thing that ends up destroying a society is homosexual marriage. I'm not saying you can't be homosexual. I'm saying marriage is the problem. When we no longer see that marriage is a union between man and woman. You want to have other things for tax reasons, go for it, right? But when you accept homosexual marriage as a norm, that is the beginning of the end. And then the Gemara says it slides. What comes next is bestiality, right? When a man and a woman say we could marry an animal and have a relation with anything, it's all arbitrary. Who says I can't love my dog? Who says I can't love my sheep, my camel, whatever it is? Like Bil'am was married to his donkey, right? Yeah. And then after that, after we accept bestiality as a society, you know what comes next? Cannibalism comes next. Cannibalism means that you can go to the supermarket and say, ooh, I'd like that human arm, please. Or that leg of a man, please. That becomes the lowest level, and that's where we get to Sodom, and then society gets destroyed. Where are we right now? Somewhere in between 1 and 2. Right? We might be at 2 already, but we haven't sanctioned it. It's not enough. We're not at 2 yet. 2 means when it becomes legal. As a matter of fact, actually, who says it? I forget.
So what happens when we do?
One second. I want to share this, and I'll take it. There's a source, I just don't remember where right now, that says the reason why the Jewish people had to leave Egypt as quickly as they did is because on that day, they accepted homosexual marriage in Egypt. And that was the beginning of the end. I had to get out immediately. Right? This source was written 2,000 years ago. This is not like a modern source. These ideas are written in the Gemara, which are 2,000 years old. These are not modern ideas. Modern anthropologists doing studies. This is Misorah that we have from people that lived, who watched the rise and fall of civilizations. We are telling the story of how civilizations rise and fall. The Torah itself is a criticism of power and civilization, and wants us to morally elevate society and so on and so forth. Okay.
I'm sorry, the same-sex marriage here, it was allowed during the time of Obama?
Yeah, around that time. Yeah, the conversation started in 2002. I think it became legal in 2006.
We don't reach those levels, right? The world will be destroyed before we get to.
I don't know. It can reach it. It can reach it. It
And
can.
the world will be destroyed.
And then that society, that the world, that civilization gets destroyed.
And then the world will exist.
Now, now I think that's why I said earlier about if we survive, that if we continue on this path of being ungrateful, and we're not willing to fight for what we have right now, we will certainly lose what we have right now. And there will be an untold amount of suffering as a result of it, because it'll take a society generations to fix and relearn how to live with all the things that we are used to having right now.
So only the Jewish nation is included in that punishment, or?
No, the whole world. The world is included
The
in
whole
that.
world, so if the LGBT community, in other words, continues on the path and gets what they want.
Again, remember, the word, I'm very sensitive because I know there are people that are gay, and I get it.
No problem.
But for me, it's more about how we structure our society. When we accepted homosexual marriage, right, that brought in the whole entire world of trans and identity politics. Because once you're changing definitions, we could change all definitions. And I made this argument. I remember having this conversation in 2004. I said, "You'll see, this is going to be the beginning and the end of our society. We can't change definitions. A man is a man and a woman is a woman. Period. Right? There's no changing that.
So the government now is a little bit more
Conservative.
okay? And then they said a man is a
For now, yeah. And we have to pass that. It's not enough. We have to pass it in the Congress. So it's because right now any kind of executive order can be undone by another executive order.
Just because it's a law written by an American government that.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It says if you this is a complete tangent, but I believe it's a worthy tangent, so I'll share. Ready? So we say on Shabbat, we say Mikadesh Shabbat, right? The bracha we make is, and God sanctifies the day of Sabbath. Now, when it comes to a holiday, it doesn't say that. It says Mikadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim, that the Jewish people are sanctifying the time. Now, this is fascinating. Ready? The only way a holiday becomes a holiday is from the time of the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin would have to go out and say, this is the moon, this is when the holiday is happening. And if they didn't make that declaration, there is no sanctity in that time. So, well, if that's the case and we have no Sanhedrin, then how do we have holidays today? You know what they say? The Sanhedrin wrote out every single holiday, announced its date and time 2,000 years ago, wrote it in a book, and that's what gives every holiday that we have today the holiness that it has. And they only did it for 6,000 years. Because they knew that the 6,000th year Mashiach's coming and you're no longer need it.
Wow.
So our holidays today the holiness came from the Great Assembly, the Anshe Knesset Gedolah, their declaration of these holidays, because it only comes from Mikadesh Yisrael Azmanim, and that's why we have it. So yes, the pronouncement of a people, remember, because what we say impacts reality. What the locals do, it impacts reality. That's why we're so careful about anti-Semitism. It's such a tricky thing, because of course there should be criticism of Israel, and there should be criticism of Jews who do things that are wrong, but there's a slippery slope that once that criticism comes and it's unfettered, with any group, by the way, it's caution. Because once we can say anything about anybody, right, we don't care about societal norms, it's the beginning of the end of that society also. We're the canary in the coal mines. When they start coming after us, that's the beginning of the end of that society. And I do think we're like on the precipice of it. So if we don't change what's happening with young people today, and we don't teach them to kind of like, you see this by the way in South Africa, what's happening right now also. It's horrible what's happening there. They're basically saying openly, we're going to create genocide against white people. We're going to kill all the white people there. That's not discriminating. She's okay because she's not in. But like I'm just saying, like it's a crazy place. The world's becoming crazy again, and if we are not willing to fight and have moral clarity, we're going to lose everything that we have. That's why we're doing.
Construction, we've been that way. We try to give that example, but it's the outer societies or the other nations that are.
We're not. I'll tell you why. Because said it here, and he was right. What's the mayor's name again? What's his name? Yeah, thank you. Eric Adams came and spoke here actually. And afterwards, there were people that stayed around for questions, and he said this, and it's true. He's right and he's wrong. He says the only way we're going to stop anti-Semitism in New York City is if Jews and non-Jews build stronger relations. My children need to play with your children. That's what he said. He's right,
He's wrong.
and he's wrong. My kids won't play with his kids, not because they're bad kids. Our values are different, and values are important. I don't know who's going to impact who.
That's your Dalet.
Yeah, that's why I'm mentioning it.
Sorry.
That's why I'm mentioning it. No, it's totally cool. Totally cool. Let's keep going. I want to finish the sheet. Because it's getting late. All right. Mar Ukva, we're at the bottom of page 5, last paragraph. Who had a poor neighbor. Each morning, Mar Ukva would enter quietly. Would quietly place 4 coins at his neighbor's door. Curious to discover the identity of his benefactor, the poor man waited by the door one day. That morning, Mar Ukva approached with his wife. Upon seeing the man watching, they quickly fled and hid in a large oven that had not yet fully cooled. Mar Ukva suffered from the heat, while his wife remained unharmed. Sensing his distress, she said to him, "Place your feet on mine, for mine are cool." When Mar Ukva later asked what merit had protected her, she replied, "I give to the poor cooked food, which they could enjoy immediately. You give them money, which requires them to first go out and buy the food, delaying their benefit." Rabbi Yochanan explained that Mar Ukva and his wife went to such great lengths to avoid being seen because it is better to throw oneself into a burning furnace than to shame another person publicly. These are 2 lessons over here. One is, it's not just chesed, the kind of chesed you do and how you do it matters. She put in the effort of giving a finished product, and she had more merit than just giving the money. Therefore, making a donation is great, but even more profound is the volunteering, helping, the cooking, and so on and so forth. The last one, Otiyot Rabbi Kiva teaches, why does a Dalet turn its face toward the Gimel? Because all who are poor in this world will be rich in the world to come. Just like all of Israel, who dedicate themselves to the performance of mitzvot. By turning its face toward the Gimel, the Dalet acknowledges that it is ultimately God who provides sustenance, not man. The poor person places trust not in human generosity, but in the kindness of the Creator. This idea beautifully expresses by the Birkat HaMazon, where we pray, "Please Hashem, our God, do not make us dependent on our gifts of all human hand and not on their loans, but on your hand, full, open, holy, and generous, so that we may never feel shame or humiliation forever and ever." The Dalet is about how we let things in and out of our lives. Hopefully, we remember that the Dalet is a doorway to our homes. The Dalet, what we bring in is Yulad, gives birth to our realities. Because at Hashem, next week we will continue and forge through the letter He. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for listening.